Hello, everybody. Welcome to my introduction about solution-focused therapy, specifically the art of asking resource-activating questions. Thank you for the invitation. I'm honored to speak at your conference, Strategies in Psychotherapy. And we were looking forward to coming to Bari, Italy, and we could imagine having a espresso overlooking the Adriatic Sea, but unfortunately not possible. So I'm drinking my homemade coffee here. We have to talk online. There's a lot of talking heads online these days, giving trainings and webinars. So here's another talking head from the Netherlands. Imagine that you ask one of your friends a question, and the question sounds like this. What kind of limitations have you experienced recently during this Corona time? Or you ask your friend a different question. What kind of resilience have you noticed within yourself or with your family members? Or what useful things have you been doing during this Corona time? So these are different questions that lead to different answers. The first question is called problem-focused. What kind of limitations have you experienced? And the second question is called resource activating. What kind of good things have you been, useful things have you been doing? Or what kind of resilience have you noticed? And that will lead to solution talk. And therapists also have this choice. They can ask a lot of problem-focused questions leading to problem talk. So they have a steering wheel. They can steer towards problem talk, or they can ask solution-focused questions leading to solution talk. Now, most therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers are used to asking problem-focused questions based on the medical model. So they will ask questions about symptoms of the problem, symptoms of the problem behavior. They will ask questions about dysfunctional aspects of the relationship, dysfunctional patterns within the family. They will ask about the problem history of the client. So a lot of the session is filled with what we call problem talk. But not the solution-focused therapists. They ask different questions, and they have a lot of different questions, resource-activating questions. And the main theme is that the questions are directed towards the desired changes of the client. So instead of asking about a lot of questions about the problem, some questions are useful. It's not a taboo to talk about the problem, but still they will ask a lot of questions that are directed towards the desired changes of the client. So the content of the session is quite different. And the content of the session is about possibilities, about desired changes of the client. It's about what's already working for the client, about small steps towards the goals that are important to the client. So the content of the conversation is quite different. Steve DeShazer, co-founder, co-creator of the solution-focused therapy approach, with a wonderful quote, very simple and direct. Problem talk creates problems, and solution talk creates solutions. Steve said, instead of getting rid of the problem, because there will appear a hole there, figure out with your client what they want. What does the client want? and figure out what's already there that's working for your client, and figure out what the client needs to do more of. Here's an example. One of my clients that I saw this week, sent by his GP because he felt depressed, and he told me that he withdraws from everybody, that he feels locked up in himself, that he feels lonely, and that he feels negative. So I have the choice. I can ask problem activating question, and this is a very common question. What kind of upbringing did you have? Tell me about your childhood. Because the assumption is there's a relationship between the current problems and childhood experiences. And this will lead to problem talk, talking about the problem history of the client. I didn't do that. I asked different questions, focusing on his preferred future. And at one point in the conversation, we talked about expressing yourself. What difference would that make? And my client could answer. He said, when I appear at my work, a lot of the time when I find things that I don't like, I don't say anything. But when I would speak up, when I would express myself, yeah, things would change. And so I asked different questions. In recent times, have you expressed yourself in a better way? And what helped you to do that? And are you confident that you can express yourself in the near future in a better way? So there was a lot of solution talk. And the client said, this is very helpful for me. This is very useful. So next time when he comes, I will start asking the question, what's a little bit better since the last time we met? Focusing on progress, focusing on slight improvement. So this is very obvious. The problem activating questions lead to problem talk, and resource activating questions, solution focused question lead to solution talk. So you have different content. So the questions that the therapist asks determine to a great extent the content and the direction of the session, of your talk. On this slide, you can see the underlying assumptions. Working problem-focused. And the underlying assumption is that clients have shortcomings, have deficiencies, have pathologies that need to be diagnosed and treated by an expert. So here the therapist is an expert, operates from an expert position. But not in the solution-focused approach. There's a different assumption. So when a client comes in, the assumption is that client has resources, client has strengths and solutions that can be identified and built upon in the conversation with the therapist. So quite a different assumption. This shift we call paradigm shift, from working problem-focused based on a medical model to working solution-focused. Paradigm shift. Thomas Kuhn, philosopher of science, he was a physicist. He wrote this famous book, Structure of Scientific Revolution, talking about the paradigm shift. He was one of the first talking about paradigm shift. And he says the paradigm that the scientist works from will determine the things that he will find. So the answers you get are related to the questions you ask, depend upon the questions you ask. So answer and question go together. The Structure of Scientific Revolution, a book about paradigm shift. In here you can see 4 wise men. You recognize Thomas Kuhn, Michel Foucault, Ian Hacking, and Ludwig Wittgenstein. Thomas Kuhn talking about the paradigm shift, Michel Foucault about episteme, Ian Hacking was talking about lines of thinking, and Ludwig Wittgenstein, the language game. So words will get a meaning within the context of the game, the language game used by a person. And what I found most interesting is that they say these paradigms, these frameworks of organizing concepts, they will structure our thoughts about science, in our field about therapy, about the world. And these paradigms, they have changed over time. Of course, in our field also, the views on therapy have changed over time. And they also say they are not rational, but they are social constructs. So they are constructed within a group of scientists, within a group of psychiatrists, clinical psychologists. Think of DSM, DSM-5. So even the DSM-5 book full with pathology is a social construct. And these are not discoveries, but these are inventions, they say. And they set a scientific field as a frame for future discoveries. So the paradigm you work from will determine what you see. So when you work from a different paradigm, you will see different things with your client, and you will ask different questions. Now, here's a question for you, if you like. If you like, please answer this question. Suppose you have a successful day working with your clients, and you are at your best. What do you notice? What do your clients notice about you? Would you please take a few seconds and answer this question for yourself and see what kind of answers will pop up? Thank you for that. So, and here you can find some questions at the beginning of your session, at the start of your session, that are solution focused, resource activating. For instance, suppose we have a good meeting. What do you hope to get out of it? Or what needs to happen here today to make you think that this meeting was worthwhile? What are your best hopes for this meeting today? Our colleagues from Brief London have invented this question. It has become very popular. What are your best hopes for this session? Or another question, what will be the first signs for you and others that things are moving in the right direction? What makes you think now is a good time to make some changes? When you leave this room after we are done, how do you know it was a successful conversation? So these are all possibilities, and feel free to try them. Also, when you ask one of these questions, be prepared that your client will give a problem answer, because most clients want to express their worries to you. They want to explain, their problems to you. So don't panic when you ask a solution-focused question and you get a problem answer. So what you do is just show your understanding. You don't need, when your client gives a problem answer, you don't need to ask a lot of problem-oriented questions. You just understand their problem and make sure that you express your understanding, grounding we call that, and then you'll try again. Try again one of these questions. Now I would like to end my presentation with a quote of my mentor, Insoo Kim Berg, also co-creator of the solution-focused approach. And the quote, that's a way to see it, and there's also another way to see it. You can hear Buddhism in it, you can hear social constructivism in it. Both say there's no absolute truth. You have quite a lot of different views, and there's no single view that contains the absolute truth. So this quote gives me a lot of freedom, gives you a lot of freedom when you work with clients. Thank you very much for your attention, and look who has joined us in the meantime. I'm looking forward to hearing about your views on the topic of solution-focused therapy. I'll speak to you later. Thank you.